Hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to another live Manchester United news, transfer news, and update show. And it's time for a bit of a rant. And look, I'm not one to be negative. I'm not one to go on that many rants. But it is time for a rant. It is time to have a conversation about Manchester United. And if you don't like negativity, and if you don't like rants, this isn't the stream for you. But we finished 15th in the Premier League last season. 15th. Not 4th, not 3rd, 15th. If the promoted sides were not so crap, we could have got relegated. Seriously, we were that bad. 15th. Are Manchester United acting in the transfer window like they finished 15th? No, they're not. One signing. Tomorrow we return for pre-season. One signing, not one sale. That is disgraceful. We miss out on Liam Delap. He chooses Chelsea. Fair enough. We miss out on Viktor Gyokeres. He chooses Arsenal. Fair enough. Dominic Calvert-Lewin? If you want a striker on a free, Jonathan David was right there. I don't believe we're going for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I refuse to believe it until we get something credible on it. But I'm fuming. I'm not necessarily fuming that Gyokeres is going to Arsenal because I was expecting that news to happen. I was hoping they were going to get Sesko. I'm fuming at the way this window is happening. I'm fuming that Arsenal are going to get Viktor Gyokeres. I'm fuming that Arsenal have announced Supermende today. They're working on a deal for Mascara. They've agreed personal terms with Eze and Madueke. They've brought Norgard in. They've brought Kepa in. And now they're working on a deal to bring Gyokeres in. And a here we go could come today. That is annoying because we were talking about Arsenal the other day and how they're moving slow. Look at Arsenal. Look at City. Look at Liverpool. Look what they are doing compared to us. First, second, and third compared to us. Like, honestly. And look, I was saying, look, the Mbeumo deal is going to take time. Brentford are asking for a pretty unreasonable price. Just, we've got to be patient. Yeah, I was saying that a couple of weeks ago, but that was a couple of weeks ago. It's 5 weeks since we put in our first bid for Mbeumo. 5 weeks. Pre-season starts. I can't be patient anymore. I can't be patient. When we're getting linked to Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Arsenal are signing Viktor Gyokeres and we finished 15th last season, it's infuriating, and people say, why don't we go for Sesko? The reason Arsenal didn't go for Sesko is because he's 90 million euros. We don't have 90 million euros to spend on Sesko. That's 75 million quid. Until we sell a player, we can't do anything outside of Mbeumo. Okay? Like, I don't know if we're going for Dominic Calvert-Lewin or not, but I am frustrated. I am annoyed. I do not want Gyokeres to go to Arsenal, but I was expecting that to happen, so I'm not necessarily mad at that news. What I'm mad at isn't Gyokeres going to Arsenal. It's frustrating, it's annoying. I accepted that weeks ago. What I'm mad at is everybody else doing business and we get linked to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I don't think we're going to sign Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I think it was probably like a non-credible link. But if we do sign Dominic Calvert-Lewin, that is concerning. That is concerning. Arsenal are in advanced talks with Sporting Lisbon over a deal to sign Gyokeres. Transfer fee and discussions continue, but personal terms in place for a 5-year contract. 27-year-old Sporting striker only wants Arsenal. Arteta's pushing for swift conclusion. When it was, okay, but Arsenal still might get Sesko, we could chill a bit. We could relax a bit, thinking, you know what, Gyokeres potentially could be open to United in the window. I was less keen on him because he wanted Arsenal, but it could have been an opportunity later in the window. Do you know what I mean? But it's pretty much set. Gyokeres is going to go to Arsenal. Fabrizio Romano said, Arsenal are closing in on a deal to sign Viktor Gyokeres with an agreement very close with Sporting. The here we go can come soon. We're going to get here we go for Viktor Gyokeres. We could get it in the next hour. We could get it in the next 24 hours. We could get it in the next week. But it looks like we've basically got the here we go for Gyokeres. This is basically confirmation that Arsenal will get Gyokeres. When Arsenal are working on the Gyokeres deal and they've agreed personal terms with the player, when Sporting have clauses and potentially have to lower the fee, it looks like this deal is going to happen. It looks like here we go time in regards to Arsenal getting Gyokeres. Arsenal apparently is set to pay, and hear this, you know, look at this. I bet if it was us, we'd pay 70 million. We're talking about Arsenal paying 56 million set fee, which is what Gyokeres wanted. It was the gentleman's agreement. And 8 to 13 million in add-ons. So we're talking about Arsenal paying 64 million. We paid 72 million for Højlund. Arsenal are going to get Viktor Gyokeres for less than we got Højlund for. 56 million fixed fee. I bet if it was Man United, it'd be a 70 million fixed fee because you know what it's like. But there's also that coming in. And I'm just fed up. Like, Arsenal fans have been frustrated with this window, and rightly so. They keep finishing second, this and that, this and that. But today, Arsenal get an announcement for Subamendi, a fantastic midfield signing that Liverpool wanted last year. Today, Arsenal get told that here we go for Gyokeres is incoming, and they're going for Gyokeres. Today, they did agree personal terms with Madueke yesterday, which some Arsenal fans aren't happy about, but they've also agreed personal terms for Eze, and they've also agreed personal terms for Mascara. They've brought Norgard in, they've brought Kepa in. Compare that to us. Wirtz, Frimpong, Gyokeres, Liverpool, also bringing in Gay, working on Isak. Boom. City, Cherky, Reinders, Ain't Nori, Naipan. Arsenal, Norgard, Kepa aren't the most exciting signings, but Subamendi, Gyokeres, and then working on Eze, Rodrigo, Madueke. Compare that to us. With 15th, their first, second, and third. How are we going to close the gap? I do not want to continue watching Manchester United finish 15th. Last season was a disgrace. Last season has to be an anomaly. Finishing mid-table, we're going to make coming the norm at this rate. Finishing 15th, finishing mid-table 2 seasons in a row. The first time in my lifetime that we've gone 2 seasons without Champions League football. Finishing mid-table is becoming the norm at Manchester United, and that is completely unacceptable. We let scraping top 4 and hoping for top 4 become the norm, and 6th being bad. A few years ago, getting top 4 was the norm, 6th was being bad. We went from winning the title and 3rd being a bad season for the norm, to then getting top 4 to be the norm, for then, finishing 6th was bad to be the norm. So now we're hoping we finish 6th next season. The standards at this club are continuing to fall and fall and fall and fall. And I just want to call it out because I've had enough. We're being linked to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. If we wanted a striker on a free, Jonathan David was there. Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Osimhen is there. I think his wages are ridiculous, but he's not going to Saudi anytime soon, it looks like. So maybe he wants a move in Europe. I get that we need to sell people after Mbeumo to finance a striker. I get that. I understand that. But can we hurry up with some sales? I get that it's not easy, but this is ridiculous. Oh, Real Betis have made 50 million in sales and they can only loan Anthony. No, they can't. Don't let them mug you off. Jadon Sancho won't lower his wages to go to bloody Juventus. Barcelona making bids for any winger, but only have money to do Rashford on loan, who will take a wage cut to join. It is getting beyond ridiculous, people. I am absolutely fed up. I'm absolutely fed up. And look, people say at the end of the day, we've still got a lot of time left in the window, la-di-la. We might get to the end of August, we might sign a striker, we might sign a midfielder, we might sign a wingback, we might sign a goalkeeper. We might get the 7 signings that we all want to get by the end of August. And that could be great that we get that. But the way we're working, it feels like max we're capable of doing 3 signings this summer. But I said it yesterday. The reason I want signings in now is because it's going to be so key for Ruben Amorim. Ruben Amorim, it has 8 games max. If Ruben Amorim hasn't shown anything 8 games into the season, he is gone. He is sacked. And if he has the players for pre-season, they're more ready. They're more likely to make an instant impact. And that will help Ruben Amorim. This is make or break for Ruben Amorim's job. And people might not understand that. And people might not see that. But I honestly think not getting business in early is make or break for Amorim's job. Had we got Mbeumo in the door right now, I wouldn't be ranting about Gyokeres to Arsenal had Mbeumo been in the door right now. I wouldn't be. But we've been spending that long on it. I'm fed up. Had Mbeumo been in the door, had we been working on Watkins right now, I wouldn't be having so much of a rant. Had we sold a player and had Mbeumo been on the door on top of Cunha, the rant wouldn't be like this. But Ruben Amorim has every right to be fuming. He's likely got the first 7 to 8 Premier League games to prove himself. That is it. If he doesn't do anything within 7 or 8 games, he is sacked. And those games include Chelsea, who are strengthening, Arsenal, who are strengthened, and City, who are strengthened. Yeah, he's going to go on pre-season with not one single outgoing. There's 5 players he's told not to return to training. None of them have been sold. 0 outgoings and just 1 new first-team signing. He has pre-season to adapt. Pre-season to get players settled in. You look at how Euro needed a few games to warm up. You look at how Xerxes needed a few games to warm up. You look at how Agate needed a few games to warm up. Imagine if they'd gone on pre-season, had those few games to warm up, they would have been much better. Agate's first few games for United were crap. Xerxes' first few games for United were crap. Euro's first few games for United were worrying. Yeah? Look at them now. Agate, yes, he's been a bit hit and miss. But look at the improvement. So that's why I want players in the door for pre-season, because new signings can come in, but Mbeumo might be rusty the first 4 or 5 games. If Mbeumo doesn't have pre-season with us and he's rusty the first 4 or 5 games, those first 4 or 5 games could determine Amarin's future. You don't realise that. And that's why I'm annoyed. Because there are 5 players who didn't return to training. None of them been sold. Amarin plays a different system to Ten Hag. If a manager had come in that played a very similar style of football to Ten Hag and a very similar system to Ten Hag, and we'd appointed the manager to come in and make the most out of the squad, that is completely different. But when you appoint Amarin, you knew, and Ineos knew, when they appointed Amarin, they had to rip up the whole squad. Amarin's style of play, Amarin's football is very different to Ten Hag. Dan Ashworth raised this point, and Dan Ashworth got sacked because of this. Dan Ashworth said, if we're going to sack Ten Hag, should we look at managers that play a more similar style to Ten Hag than Ruben Amorim? That's what Dan Ashworth suggested, because Dan Ashworth suggested, if we haven't got much money and we haven't got much finances, why are we bringing in a manager? Well, we're going to have to rip up the whole starting 11 to make it work. Well, we're going to have to bring in at least 7 signings to make it work, because the system is so different to how we've recruited in the past. That's the point Dan Ashworth made, and he lost his job at that. Ineos knew, when you walk Ruben Amorim in, this is a guy that's going to need 7 or 8 signings. This isn't Arne Slot who can come in and adapt. You know, this is someone that plays very different football and is very insistent on the football he plays, and he needs a lot of signings. So for a manager that needs a lot of signings to make it work, who's finished 15th, who clearly needs help, you've given him one guy for pre-season. One guy. And the club knew when they appointed Amorim he was going to need players. Had we had 3 players in by now, had we even had Mbeumo in by now, I'd be feeling better. Had we had maybe, I don't know, let's say Anthony was out the door and Mbeumo was in. If we right now had Cunha and Mbeumo in and Anthony was out the door, I wouldn't be as mad. I'd say, look, things take time. It's not easy. People want to mug us off in the window. But this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. We need those players in for pre-season. Cunha, brilliant, great, fantastic signing. And Mbeumo, can't wait for it to happen. Hopefully it will happen. But you look at the time it takes players to settle. You look at how Amarin's going to get max 8 games. And if Amarin had 4 players in the door for pre-season that had settled and were ready to start the season, our chances of going up against City, Arsenal and Chelsea are a lot stronger, who are a lot more prepared than us, who are already better than us and have made better improvements and are a lot more prepared than us. When results don't come in early, Amarin's going to be under pressure. If results don't come in within the 4th game of the season, Amarin's going to be under pressure. Not the ones above him that have failed him, that have embarrassed ourselves so far in the window. And look, they might redeem it in August, and we might come out of this window having a very good window, and I will hold my hands up. But what I'm not happy with is the lack of business now, considering pre-season's important. But if results don't go Amarin's way a few games into the season, he's under pressure, not the ones above him. United said, we're having a rebuild, we finished 15th, they've sold this rebuild, we're going to completely rip it up. And then they're saying we don't have the finance to do that. If you didn't have the finance to do that, why didn't you listen to Dan Ashworth and bring in a manager that had a more similar play style to Ten Hag, so we didn't have to do as much business? Why? If we'd have finished 3rd and we were acting like this, it would have been a lot more acceptable. But we finished 15th. We finished 15th last season, and we're acting like we finished 4th and we're happy with the squad we have. That's how we're acting. And I get that Brentford have put the Mbeumo price up. And I get that if it was Manchester City going in for Mbeumo, it would be a lot cheaper. I get that. I understand that. I understand that things take time. And 2 weeks ago, I was saying, guys, relax on Mbeumo. We'll be done. These things take time. Brentford are taking the mick. But I said that 2 weeks ago because I generally thought it was going to be done within the next week. I didn't think 2 weeks later, I was sitting there saying, honestly, there's no news on Mbeumo. Like, I'm telling you this now. We're just being told Mbeumo's close. And we're closing in on Mbeumo. What does that mean? We've been told that for 4 weeks. Mbeumo was close. We're closing in on Mbeumo. We've been told that for 4 weeks. What does that mean? We've been told, oh, we're looking at Douglas Luiz. Cool. We've been told, oh, we like Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Cool. What is going on? I want to look at the live chat because I haven't looked at the live chat, and there's a lot of good live chats in today's show. But yeah, Brentford don't work at weekends. That is actually something that I heard somewhere. So apparently nothing can happen with Mbeumo over the weekend. But how slow we're watching is just, it's infuriating. It's infuriating. I am positive. I think for a Manchester United fan in the online space, I am patient and positive. I think sometimes I give Manchester United patience they don't deserve. I genuinely believe in the online space where people are very reactionary and react after this and react after that. I am quite patient. I am quite positive. I look at the bright side of things. I try and understand situations. I try and look at it from both ways. I try and give the benefit of the doubt. I backed Rasmus Højlund in his first season, and I backed him at the beginning of the second season, and then I got to a point where I just couldn't back Rasmus Højlund anymore. People had stopped backing Rasmus Højlund 5-6 months before me. I wanted to give him that patience because I'm a patient person. And I will try and look for the positives, and I will try and understand the concept of the United environment ruining players, you know? So when I'm losing my patience with Manchester United, I think I've got a good reason to. I think I do. Because I am fed up with how slow it is. You know? For me, look, I felt like we all knew the Gyokeres was going to Arsenal. And this rant isn't necessarily over Gyokeres going to Arsenal, but it is Calvert-Lewin and Ndidi being linked to Manchester United and Gyokeres going to Arsenal. Do you know what I mean? He could be their Van Persie type signing. And I just think, we could have got relegated last season. And Cunha's a great signing and a fantastic signing. But we've still got Rashford at the club. We've still got Garnacho at the club. We've still got Anthony at the club. We've still got all these players at the club that we don't want at the club. Amrin doesn't want at the club. And yeah, this and that. Someone said Fabrizio, here we go. Has Fabrizio done the here we go? He said the here we go was soon. Let me grab my phone. Has there actually been a here we go? No, there's not a here we go yet. Romano said the here we go is incoming. So we could get the here we go soon. Vlahovic, I mean, at this point, I would take Vlahovic, who's on ridiculous wages and been very underwhelming for Juventus. But this is the state we're in. This is the state we're in. I'm in a situation now where if Manchester United were negotiating for Goncalo Ramos, I'd be happy. We should have higher standards than that. We're being linked to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I don't think we're going to go for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I don't think we're interested in Dominic Calvert-Lewin. But when you're hearing Arsenal advanced talks to sign Gyokeres, and Man United are making a shot move for Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and we finished 15th, and they finished 2nd, and we've had 2 finishes mid-table, it makes you feel sick as a United fan. For me, it makes me feel sick. I wanted to get into some chats. I want to get into some other stuff. Like, there is news about United today. Do you know what? The reason I was going to do a live show at 11. Yeah, I was going to do a live show about 11 o'clock today. And the reason I decided not to do a live show at 11 o'clock today is because there was just no news about United. I was reading the Manchester United news today, and I thought, this is pathetic. You know, when you're reading the news, I thought, this is pathetic. This is pathetic. This is pathetic. There's no relevant updates on Mbumo. There's no relevant updates on sales. The news coming in about Manchester United today was the same old stuff that we have been told for months. Honestly, the same old stuff that we have been told for absolute months was the stuff coming in today. Shall I read you the news? You know, normally I would do a 10-minute roundup on the news and say, this is the news, blah, 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 and try and be positive and all of that. The news is, Arsenal and Viktor Gyokeres, here we go, is expected soon. Cool, we've known that. News also coming out that Manchester United have inquired about Douglas Luiz. There's no updates on that. Apparently we've looked at him. Cool, but we've been told we've looked at him so that's nothing new there. Just more talks that United have a slight interest in Douglas Luiz. Apparently Ollie has an interest in Sancho bringing into Besiktas, but we know that Sancho doesn't want to go to Turkey, so that's just irrelevant news. And then there was the Dominic Calvert-Lewin story. That is all the news we've got in the last 24 hours. Is Dominic Calvert-Lewin interest. Besiktas wants Sancho, but that doesn't matter because Sancho doesn't want to go to Turkey. And there's interest in Douglas Luiz, which we've been told 100 times. That is it over the weekend. Of course, things are slow over the weekend. I get that. But then, things are only slower for Man United over the weekend because that's our weekend. Arsenal's weekend is Madueke terms agreed. Subamende announced. Gyokeres, here we go soon. Also working on Mascara. Also got personal terms agreed with Eze. Is it only Man United that can't do anything at the weekend, guys? Is it only us? I'm just frustrated. We needed 7 signings. I'm going to show you something, actually. I knew we weren't going to get 7 signings, but if we'd have got 5 signings in the door that were good signings, I would have been, somewhat happy. I saw Usman tweet something that I completely agreed with, okay? This is how I felt. We were never going to get 7 signings, and I wasn't going to be unrealistic and demand 7 signings, okay? But this is what we need, and everyone knows this is what we need, Okay, we needed a left 10. We got that in Mateus Cunha. Brilliant. Perfect signing. Well done, Ineos. Great signing. You got it done quick. Happy. We needed a striker. We missed out on the lap. Financially, striker will be difficult. Okay, we need some sales. Cool. Whatever. Just not Dominic Calvert-Lewin. If you wanted a player on the free, you should have gone for Jonathan David. Right forward and Mbeumo. Cool. But where is he? Where is he? 2 weeks ago, I could have patience and I could say, guys, we're not even in July yet. Things will move in July. Let's be patient. And I was backing United 2 weeks ago and I was saying, be patient. And I was saying be patient because I didn't think that in 2 weeks' time, I'd sit here with no Mbeumo news. None. Maybe this Gyokeres announcement will make Man United just hurry the F up with Mbeumo because of the pressure. Centre mid. Don't know. We're interested in Richard Rios. Have we made a move? No. We're interested in Hayden Hackney. Have we made a move? No. We're interested in Edison. Have we made a move? No. Okay. So what's going on in midfield? Oh, Jasari. Oh no, we never made a move. AC Milan have. Okay. DM probably that's not important. CM, we just need CM. Left wing back. It could be a right wing back as well. Dumfries. Dumfries is available on the market for 20 million quid. Dumfries, who is perfect in a back five, that suits the system and would help some much needed wing back depth. Dumfries is available for 20 million quid. Goalkeeper. I get we can't make a move for a goalkeeper until we sell a goalkeeper. I get that. Baindy should go. Anana, they told Anana to leave. I'm telling you this now. When I said 2 months ago and broke the news that Manchester United had told Anana to leave, that is because that news was true. We had told Anana to leave. Not leave. We told Anana to find a new club. We didn't say he had to leave. We didn't tell him to leave. We told him he can go and look for a new club. Manchester United told Onana he can go and look for a new club because Manchester United ideally would like Onana to go in to replace Onana, but they cannot replace Onana unless Onana leaves, and the possibility of Onana leaving is low. We need 7 starters for next season. 6. We'll say 6. 6 starters for next season. Left 10, striker, right 10, centre mid, wing back, goalkeeper. We need 6 starters. I'm not saying we have to get all 6. I'm saying we could have got 5. But we are starting pre-season with 1. The board has failed Amarin. The board has absolutely failed Amarin there. It's failed Amarin. We're talking 2 years ago about having this big rebuild. 1 year about having this big rebuild. 7 years ago about having a big rebuild. And we're just back in the same spot. Man City had their worst season in yonks and I'm going to sign 3 good players and look like they'll be back next season. And they still finished 3rd in their worst season in yonks. Do you know what? Our worst season under Sir Alex Ferguson will be finishing 3rd, like Man City had. Imagine that. If we'd have finished 3rd this season, we'd have been creaming. Even if we won no trophy, we'd have finished 3rd this season, we'd have been creaming. Back in the day, 3rd was a bad season. The standards of this club have fallen. If we get Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I'll be fuming. I always try and look at the bright side. When we sign a player, I always try and be positive. I always try and look at the bright side. I always try and get behind every player we sign and be positive and look at the bright side. But if we sign Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I just think it's stupid. I think it's absolutely stupid. Because before his injury, Dominic Calvert-Lewin was better than Højlund. Before his injury, Dominic Calvert-Lewin was better than Højlund. I don't think Dominic Calvert-Lewin is better than Højlund. I don't. Post-injury, Dominic Calvert-Lewin has not been better than Højlund. He got less Premier League goals than Højlund last season. Less goals than Højlund last season. He's 8? He's incredibly injury prone. He'll want highest wages. I don't want Dominic Calvert-Lewin. 4 years ago, yeah, better than Højlund. Pre-injury Dominic Calvert-Lewin, better than Højlund. But he's not better than Højlund. I wouldn't want him. I would rather, if Manchester United sold Højlund and brought Dominic Calvert-Lewin in on a free to replace him, I'd be fuming. I want Højlund to go for his own good. But I would rather be starting Højlund for 38 games up top next season than Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I would. I don't think he's better than Højlund. He's definitely not better than Xerxes. And people might disagree with me on that. Dominic Calvert-Lewin before his injury was better than Højlund, but he's struggled. I don't think he's better than Højlund. I mean, he probably is, maybe. But I don't think... I just think I'd rather have Højlund with the wages and the injuries he comes with. To be honest. That's what I think. Alice, we can't do more than one thing at a time, and Wilcox and Barada are taking the weekend off after a hard week of negotiations for a set price from Boomer. You're right. It's ridiculous. Look, maybe we are working on 5-6 deals right now in secret, and maybe Ineos are moving mad in secret. But And if we are, and if all of a sudden next week we go and sign 4 players, I hold my hands up and say, look, I was wrong. Ineos were moving mad and working on multiple deals in secret. Because there's people in the chat saying, Alice, how do you know they aren't doing this? How do you know they aren't doing that? Because when Manchester United are doing something in the transfer window, they have to let the whole world know about it. Because they love everyone getting excited about it. They love, using the media. I don't believe that Man United are doing anything other than working on a movement right now. I don't. And if all of a sudden it turns out we have been working on loads of players this week and we go and announce those signings next week, I'll hold my hands up and apologise. But I'm with Ginge here. I don't think we can do one thing at a time. I think we're just taking the weekend off. I get that Brentford are asking for a silly price and we don't want to overpay like with Brentford last year. But it's getting to a point where we finish 15th. Sometimes when you finish 15th and everyone knows how desperate you are, sometimes you have to overpay. Sometimes that's the price you pay for finishing 15th. Because Manchester City always win the league, because Manchester City are always in such a good position, it's easier for them to negotiate deals. So sometimes you have to say, you know what? Did we want to pay 70 million for Mbeumo? No. He was a £60 million player. They've asked for 70 million because we got him for him. We didn't want to pay that much. But when we see Gittins going for 55 million, they've got 1 goal in 6 months. When we see João Pedro going for 60 million, when we see Alanga going for 60 million, and Semenyo being 75, 80 million plus, when they're asking for 70 million for Mbeumo, sometimes you say, okay, we just got to go and do it. We just got to go and do it. It's a shame we're not looking at Jasari because he looks good. How, after finishing 15th, no European football is demanding 7 signings unreasonable? Why are so many of you giving Glinios this free pass to destroy the club? Make-believe AI stadium pictures. It's more that, obviously, financially, I expect 7 signings and I would like 7 signings. Do you know what I mean? That's what I'd like. But 5 signings I can accept. 7 signings can be difficult in the financial position we're in, with the high wages we're on, how hard it is to sell players. 7 signings is a lot. Yeah? I would like 7 signings. We need 7 signings. We finished 15th. A proper club would act and get 7 signings. I'm asking for 5. I don't think 7 is unreasonable, but 5 is reasonable. 5 signings that are first team players that can walk into the starting 11 after finishing 15th should be the bare minimum. 7 is what Liverpool would do, is what Manchester City would do, is what competent clubs would do. We are not competent, and we know that. 5. We finished 15th. We should expect bare minimum 5 first team signings. And we should have expected 3 of the first team signings to be on the pre-season tour, bare minimum. 3 signings for pre-season tour, 5 first team signings, bare minimum is what we should have expected. I have tried to defend Manchester United. I will try and defend Barada and Wilcox where possible and say, look, they had to do this, they had to do that. I think some of the business we've done is great. Aiden Heaven, great. Dorgu, great. I prefer Ineos to the Glazers. I prefer the people Ineos have brought into Woodward, Murta, Arnold. People are doing Ed Woodward re-envisionment. You're crazy. You're sick. You're sick if you're re-envisioning Ed Woodward. I think the people Ineos have brought in are better than that. But I can't defend them when we're acting like this. I can't be positive when we're acting like this and this slow. I know. Alex said this here. Could finish as bad or worse next season. We have essentially stood still while everyone's improving. Same story. Stood still. Everyone else around us improving. It is pathetic. It is absolutely pathetic. Get a move on. Richard Rios, 20 million quid. Denzel Dumfries, 20 million quid. And Mbeumo, pay up. Lower the Rashford fee. Lower the Garnacho fee if you've got to just get them out the effing door. And hurry up and back your manager and do some business. Because we're 15th. Yes, we're not great at negotiating in the transfer market. Yes, we're not great at doing this and doing that. But when you're finishing 15th, we're never going to be in a strong negotiating position. So you know what? Do what you need to do to get the bloody players out of the club. Do what you need to do to get the players in. Because Amrin is going to go on pre-season tour with 1 new signing. A manager that needed 7 new signings. A manager that needs players now because he's going to be judged instantly next season because we finished 15th last year and he wasn't good enough. And he wants to make the most instant impact he can make. Because this is the thing. Let's say we get to August and Cunha's our only signing and then we sign 4 players in August. Cool. But let's say all our new signings come in just before, as the new season starts. Amron's then got to wait 4 or 5 weeks to integrate those players and get them to learn the system and get them to settle in. By the time those 4 or 5 weeks have gone by, we might have had such bad results that they sack Amron. And he hasn't even had time to integrate his new signings. Amron could be in a position where we have 4 or 5 signings coming in August. He can't integrate them. We're crap from August to November. But actually, from November onwards, Amron integrates them and we look really good from November onwards. But Ineos won't give him that time from November onwards if we look crap in November. That's what worries me. That's what worries me. Tottenham about to sign Kudus. Yeah, there was links of United showing interest in Kudus, but yeah. Kudus is not talking to any club other than Tottenham. He wants the move. Tottenham are working on Kudus deal. I think Kudus under Thomas Frank would be unbelievable. Arsenal announced Subamende, and Man United are in their 5th week of talking to Mbeumo. I'm absolutely fed up. Absolutely fed up. Insane Gamer said, I warned you about the malice, you lot didn't listen. I try and be positive. I try and be patient. I try and look at the positives and things, because if you're always negative, it's not the best outlet to have. But I'm fuming. Morton says, I hope Amron is fuming. I can seriously see him walking if he's not backed. It's like trying to build a house with no tools and material. Spot on. Wait a second. If you know United isn't competent, why are you complaining? Because we are statistically the biggest club in the world, and we don't act like it. And we have every right to complain. We have every right to complain. Ruben gone by Xmas. That's the fear. I don't like back freeze. And I don't like Amorim's system. And I'm not convinced by Amorim, but I don't want Amorim to be sacked by Christmas, because that means it's another failure. That means it's another load of money in the drain. I want Amorim to work. Arsenal fans devastated that we're signing Gyokeres over Sesko because they know it increases pressure on their cult leader. They are hoping for Sesko to buy Arteta years of excuses in the name of waiting. Says FK Retro. It's crazy how many Arsenal fans want Sesko over Gyokeres. You keep finishing second. You want to go from second to first. You want instant impact. Gyokeres is the guy. 100%. You want Gyokeres over Sesko. I don't get the Arsenal fans that are mad about it. Like, maybe Sesko's a better long-term fit for the system, but you keep finishing second. You want to win next year. You've got to buy players to win, and I think it's a good signing for Arsenal. The standards are on the floor. The standards are on the floor. Do you think players will improve next year? I hope so. I hope so. Let's hope they do. But it's just not right now. It's just everything about Manchester United is toxic. Everything about Manchester United right now is negative. And I don't like to be toxic. And I don't like to be negative. And I always try and be as positive as I can be in regards to everything. But I'm just fed up. I'm absolutely fed up. Absolutely fed up with Manchester United. And how slow we are. And one signing in. If we'd had Mbeumo in the door, if we'd have got Mbeumo, here we go, last week, I wouldn't have been like this. But I think it's a mixture of everything. We're going to redirect over to United Casa stream in a second, guys. I'm just going to read a few more chats and just check the news. Finishing as bad as we did, doing essentially nothing is a baffling approach. It is. Moving as slow as we are is a baffling approach. Osimhen's better. Look, if Man United want to make me happy, go and make a move for Osimhen. Go make a move. Go make a move for Osimhen. Get Mbeumo over there. Like, Man United, if you want to be a proper club, sign Mbeumo tomorrow. Get the Mbeumo, here we go, tomorrow. Force some players out. Make a move for Viktor Osimhen. Make a move for Viktor Osimhen. I know his wages are ridiculous, and if he's asking for anything more than 300 grand a week, then United are well within their rights to say F off. But yeah. Anyway, people, I'm just going to read out this live chat. Thank God Gyokeres is not coming. Watched him play Cecily as a Swede. He will struggle with the physicality and quickness of the defenders in the PL. I think he'll be a good signing for Arsenal, and I think he would have been a good signing for United. But I'm going to go with Copium. For the Copium, we'll say, oh, we can say that. But look, maybe you're right. There are concerns around Gyokeres. There was red flags around Gyokeres. He wasn't perfect. Osimhen's the better player. But I think it's a very good signing for Arsenal. I think it's a very good signing for Arsenal, and I can't deny that. Anyway, people, thank you for watching today's video. See you next time. Go over to United Cast. We're going to redirect over there. Bye.